Hey my Luma, let me show you how to make this super cute, super easy and quick to make mug rugs. They look great on both sides, have this boho looking fringes, which I love, and you can make them in whatever color you like. I love these for gifts. You have a cool space for your utensil or tea bag and your mug. For a complete list of supplies and more information, visit the website. Alright, let's get started. You're going to need your 24 peg loom and approximately 26 yards of cotton yarn. We're knitting with a single strand, and I'm going to secure mine to the anchor peg with a simple knot. You can do a slip knot if you're more comfortable, and then we're going to wrap 19 pegs. We are knitting flat, so when you get to peg 19, get ready to turn direction. Take the working yarn and you're going to place it above the existing loop on peg 19, and with your hook, knit off, and it's going to do this funky little thing right here. Don't worry about that. Take the working yarn to the back, and you see that it creates a knot, and you're going to bring that knot as close to the peg as you can and tighten the stitch, you see. And now we're going to take the yarn again, turn around, turn direction, put it above the existing loop, take the hook over the top and knit off. And this is a flat version of the knit stitch because the yarn is being placed flat on the peg. This can be a tight stitch for some folks. If this is uncomfortable for you, then feel free to use the U-wrap version of the knit stitch. For me, especially on this first row, I find it best to use this flat version of the knit stitch. Again, you just place your yarn flat over the existing loop and then knit off. Here is an example of a U-wrap. You half wrap and knit off, and half wrap and knit off. Once you finish knitting those 19 pegs, you're done with the cast on and you're ready for row 1, where you're basically just going to knit the row. This time I'll be using the U-wrap version of the knit stitch. Now I'm going to turn around because I'm turning direction, and I'm going to half wrap and knit off because I'm using the U-wrap version of the knit stitch. On this project, like many others that I do, I will use the U-wrap or the flat interchangeably. It's not a big deal. You can use either one, whatever's more comfortable for you. Just don't use the E-wrap. On this project, you can also use the true knit stitch. I'm not a fan, but you can use that one too. When you finish knitting those 19 stitches, you're then ready for row 2. For that row, you're going to have borders. So you're going to knit 2, purl 15, and end with 2 knit stitches. To help me remember that I have 2 knit stitches at the beginning and the end, I've added this rubber band right here and stretched it at the beginning and at the end of the row. You don't need to do this, it's optional. And then you can remove the knot off the anchor peg. You don't need it anymore. Your yarn is now secure, and to leave this on would be a big problem. So take it off, and then we're ready to start with the row. So we're going to do 2 knit stitches here, and I'm using as you can see, a flat stitch, but you could do a U-wrap. Like I said, I use them interchangeably and it doesn't really matter. When you're done with that, then you take the working yarn and you put it under the existing loop, and take your hook from the top, scoop up that working yarn, and you're going to create a new loop. There it is. Okay, now you're going to take off the old loop that's on the peg, and sometimes it needs a little help, so I'm going to use my hook, and then take the new loop and you're going to put it where the old one was and pull the working yarn to tighten that loop. Alright, let's do it again, because we need 15 purl stitches. So I scoop up and create my new loop, take my old loop off, put my new loop on, and I pull. And I keep going. Remember that you need 15 purl stitches, and then you'll end that row with your knit stitch. So continue to knit until you've done 15 purl stitches. End the row with those 2 knit stitches. Then rows 3, 4, and 5 are super easy. All you're gonna do is knit those 3 rows. After you're done knitting those 3 rows of knit stitches, you're done with row 5 and you're ready for 6, which is basically the same thing. You're gonna knit a row, but this time you have the option to change the color of your yarn like I did. So pick your favorite color. I picked yellow, and I'm going to go ahead and get my scissors because I need to cut the existing color. And I'm left about 2 inches worth of long tail, and then I got the contrasting primary color, and I'm going to do a slip knot. Now you can change colors using whatever technique works best for you. I'm going to put this slip knot. It's my new favorite method to change color, and I put it on that first peg and tighten it and then make a knot. I'm using a basic knot, and I make sure it's nice and tight, and then I make a second knot. Again, you don't have to use this method. This is just my new favorite thing. Then go ahead and knit off, because we're going to do a row of knit stitches. Tighten that up, and then when I'm getting ready to do that second one, I'm going to bring the old color and put it over the new color. And I'm sorry, there's not a big contrast. So again, you could see where I overlapped. I put the new color over my working yarn, my new color, and then I'm going to go ahead and knit off that second peg. And it's only because I want it to show up that way. Now all I have to do is finish my row. I've done 2. Remember, there's 19, so 17 more stitches and my row is finished. And then you're ready for rows 7 and 8, which is basically 1 row of knit and 1 row of purls with your knit stitch edges. And of course, you guys should know that is a garter stitch, right? 1 row of knit, 1 row of purls. So you're going to continue that garter stitch for rows 9 through 30. You're going to do, in that order, row 7, then row 8, 11 more times for a total of 30 rows. So row 7, then row 8, 11 more times. So I just want to emphasize that your row of purl stitches includes 2 knit stitches at the beginning and the end, right? So you're going to turn around, do your 2 knit stitches, then start the purl, and then you're alternating a row of knits, a row of purls. 1 direction knit, 1 direction purl. Don't forget your knit stitch edges on the purl row. Once you're done, you're ready for rows 31 through 33, where all you're going to do is knit the row, but first you can decide if you want to change the color of your yarn again. I cut the working yarn and get my secondary color and make a slip knot. Remember, you can use any color changing method you prefer. This is the new one I like. So I make the slip knot with my beige yarn, and I put it on my peg that I'm going to knit on, and I tighten both of those stitches, right? And then I'm going to use a simple knot to connect these to secure the 2 yarns. And once I know they're nice and tight and close, I go ahead and do a second knot, and then I start the process of knitting off. Now I should have brought the yellow yarn over the white one when I went to do the second peg, but I didn't, so I'm hoping you guys remember to do that, right? And then just go ahead and knit your row. Don't forget that you need to do 3 rows of the knit stitch. All right, so keep knitting. Row 34 is a purl stitch row with your knit stitches on the borders, and then row 35 is just a row of knit stitches, and you guys are experts. Once you finish knitting those last 2 rows, then you're ready for the bind off, and we're going to be doing a basic bind off. We're going to start with a very simple decrease. So go to the other end of the project, take that loop off that last peg and put it on the peg next to it, and then we're going to knit off. And what this is going to do is it's going to keep both ends looking the same size, otherwise this end will look wider. All right, now go back to that last peg that you knit off right at the beginning of the row, and now you're going to knit 2 pegs. The basic bind off is worked over 2 pegs, so we start off on the first shot knitting off 2 pegs, 1 and 2. That's what we're going to call them consistently. So you remove the loop off peg 2, and you're going to take that loop and you're going to move it over to peg 1 and tighten so that you can work the loop, the one under it, over it, and you're going to knit off peg 2. And then you're going to take that loop from peg 2 and you're going to move it over to peg 1. Okay, and then take your working yarn and tighten that loop. Now you have a new peg 1 and peg 2, but this time you're only going to knit off peg 2. So take your working yarn over to peg 2 and you're going to knit off that peg, and then you're going to take the loop off of peg 2 and you're going to move it over to peg 1. Tighten the loop so that you can knit off easily, and go ahead and bring that bottom loop over the top. If the top loop is too loose, just hold on to it with your finger like I did, and then take the loop off that peg and move it over, and now you have a new peg 1 and 2. And you see that already you have you have less, 2 pegs less with stitches, right? You've reduced 2 stitches. Now you're going to reduce another one. So you're going to knit off peg 2 and take the loop off of 2 and move it over to peg 1. Tighten that loop so you can knit off easily. And take that loop and knit off. And now you're going to take that loop and you're going to move it over, and you're going to continue this same technique, right? And you see how when I take the loop off, how I move it over, right? The way you move over that loop is going to make a difference. Okay, what you just saw me do is just tighten the stitch a little better. All right, so I'm going to move it over, and then I want you to pay attention to how I move the stitch back to the empty peg. So I'm going to knit off here, and then the direction that you place it is going to make a difference in how it looks. So pay attention when you move the stitch over. Now when you reach the end of the row, you're missing 1 because you decreased. So you only have 2 left. You're going to knit off, move the loop from peg 2 over to peg 1, knit off, and then take that loop off the peg, cut the working yarn, and you're going to take that tail and you're going to feed it through that last loop and then tighten to make that knot, and your cast on is done. And now you're ready to stretch your stitches. Don't neglect doing this because it's very important. Your project will look mighty odd if you don't stretch your stitches. It's just not the same project. So do that. Stretch your stitches. And then you're going to go to the end with the big loops, which is your cast on. And you see where the cast on tail is? That is not where you want to start. You want to start on the other end because the loops are loose and you need to tighten them. So pull on the loops, and as you pull on one, you'll see the next one that needs to be pulled because it'll start to tighten up. See how much better that looks? Way better. Now I did an E-wrap cast on, and E-wrap cast-ons allow you to tighten them. It does leave very loose loops and you can tighten them. If you have a different cast on that you would prefer to use, you can do that. For me, tightening up the cast on is crucial to the look of the project, and the E-wrap is the one that allows you to do this. You can also do a super stretchy, and it does also allow to tighten, but not as easily as I am doing this E-wrap cast on. I do recommend, and if you've never tried this before, practice first so you're not super angry when it doesn't work out the way you want it to on this project. I also have a video for this, and I will put a link in the description. Alright, once you get to the end, this one's the one that's a little tricky for folks. Just pay attention and it'll go well. See? You're watching me do it as we speak. That last one, then you can take the tail, feed it through the loop, and tighten. And if you see any that don't look quite right, you can always go back like I did here and tighten them a little more, because sometimes some of them still after you're done look a little loose. So you can go back and tighten some more, and there you have it. See, this cast off looks just like your cast on, and the two ends look the same, and that's very important. It doesn't always happen on loom knitting, but when you do this, it does. And there you go, you are done. Now you have the option to add some fringes or to leave it this way. For me, I wanted to add a little more something. But first, let's weave in the ends. So get a crochet hook, or you can do this with a needle, and feed those long tails through your work on the back side. And I will normally go through the little edge, and if anything looks a little odd, I actually use these tails to help me to make things look a little better, right? So to tighten little spots up, if you know a little opening looks a little bigger than the other, that's what I'll do. I'll use those tails when I weave in to correct some of the project. So I'm gonna finish weaving in all four ends, and don't forget, once you're done weaving in your ends, whatever excess there is, get your scissors and cut that excess yarn. Once you're done with that, you're ready for your fringes. So you're going to need 2-inch single strands of yarn, and I cut one, and then from that one I cut all the other ones. So you're going to fold it in half, nice and even, and you're going to get a crochet hook, go through those loops, and you're going to feed it through those loops, and then feed the two tails that you get, which you're going to even out so they're the same size, through that loop, and then tighten. You see? That's how you add them, and I like mine kind of tight, so I'm going to be putting a strand of I'm going to put a fringe on each and every one of my loops, and that's going to give me that nice tight look. I don't want gaps, but if you do, you can. That, you know, you can place them as however you want, then cut based on the smallest. Add your fringes to both sides. And by the way, here's a tip. If you want to add more purl stitches, it'll look like this, which is pretty cool, a little different from this one. That's it, guys. That's your mug rug. So now all you need is your mug, and there you have it. Special thanks to Carol from Promise Learning ATL, Clarissa, and Penny for covering the cost of closed captioning.